France are the Six Nations champions, but did they actually dominate the tournament? Well, in this video, we're going to be going over all the stats, all the results, reviewing their Six Nations, reviewing the best individual performances to really see, did France actually dominate the Six Nations? And if they did, how did they do it? But before you get into the video, guys, if you do enjoy the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Honestly, all the support from the France fans and all the Six Nations fans has been absolutely awesome throughout the tournament. Now going forward, there's going to be a lot more club games, the URC, the Champions Cup, and then obviously June and July, the big international games start again, so I cannot wait for it. But we do have a few Six Nations content videos coming out now, and we'll be doing a player ratings for every single team, a complete player ratings of the entire tournament, so that's going to be really fun, so stay tuned for that. So if you do enjoy the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe to help the channel grow. But let's get right into it. So France started off the tournament with a 36-14 W, a massive win over Ireland, then a 54-12 win over Wales, a really emphatic win, 2 dominant victories in a row. Their third game was a 33-8 victory versus Italy, which probably was their first real test, considering going into the second half, it was a lot closer than people maybe thought, but then France really just showed that they're a step above the rest and pulled away in the second half at the end when Italy maybe made a few mistakes and France was just absolutely on it. Then, the second to last game was a 50-40 shock defeat to Scotland. Honestly, that was one of the biggest shocks I've seen in a while in international rugby. I was not expecting that. The way France was trending, having some of their better players is back as well. Jalibert being back from injury. That was a really shock loss to Scotland. And Scotland really pitched up that day. 50 points to 40, France allowing 50 points against them. Then in the final game, a nail-biting 48 points to 46 win against England in the title deciding match. Thomas Ramos in the 82nd minute of the game, slotting a kick over to win the match. That was an absolutely huge moment, but also a really statement win from France against the probably very charged up England team that played maybe even their best game of the entire tournament. So a really big win for them. I'd say the one negative that France will take is the points scored against them in their final 2 games of the tournament. 86 points allowed in the final 2 games as opposed to 34 points allowed across the tournament. So going forward, they're going to have to sort that out, especially ending the tournament that way. They're going to play in a lot of bigger tournaments, a lot of bigger games where they just cannot allow that many points scored against them, because in those games they might not be able to score as many points against the likes of maybe an Ireland on their good day, or a Scotland or South Africa, New Zealand, or obviously Australia, Wales. Now these teams, they're going to be much more difficult to score points against, especially in those big tournaments. I mean, South Africa, New Zealand, the Wallabies, Argentina are not going to be easy to score 50 points against, and if they do allow 50 points against them, it's going to be very difficult to come back from. But overall, a really successful tournament for France. Back-to-back champions. Very successful tournament. Really, honestly, very, very dramatic way to end the tournament. But we're going to be going over some of the better individual performances and see how France fared against the other teams in the statistics department as well. So let's have a look at the top individual performances from France throughout the tournament. So Louis Barry was the top try scorer with 9 tries, a new Six Nations record. This guy is absolutely incredible. One of the best young players I've seen in my life. Theo Tisogbe came second with 5 tries, which is a very big statement by him. I know the coaches took a big gamble on him, not choosing Damien Penaud and putting the young Theo Tisogbe from Pau in there, but he came second with 5 tries, which is a really good statement from him, and he had a very solid tournament. Thomas Ramos ended second highest in carries with 78 carries in the tournament. This just shows his importance and how much of an influence he has in this team. So 78 carries, second highest in the tournament as a fullback, not even a fly half, not even a different position as well. It just shows how important Thomas Ramos is in this team and how much they really play through their key playmakers like Antoine Dupont, Mathieu Jalibert, and Thomas Ramos. The 3 players ended up in the top 5 for meters made, with Thomas Ramos second for meters made with 385 meters. Louis Barry came in third with 366 meters, and Theo Tisogbe ended 5th with 326 meters made. So 3 players in the top 5 meters made for the entire tournament. That's a very good individual statistic from France. Mathieu Jalibert led the tournament with offloads with 14 offloads. Ramos came in third with 10. So you'll probably be seeing a lot of Ramos, a lot of Jalibert, a lot of Louis Barry, but these guys were really big individual performance. They stood out completely compared to their competition. So Jalibert, highest offloads with 14, and Ramos, third highest with 10. Four players ended in the top six for try assists, with Mathieu Jalibert tied first with 6 assists, Antoine Dupont second with 5 assists, and Ramos and Louis Bilberi both with 4 assists. So 4 players in the top 6 for try assists. I mean, these guys, these names always come up. Mathieu Jalibert, Louis Bilberi, Antoine Dupont, and Thomas Ramos. These guys are just absolutely phenomenal what they do, and it just shows that France individually, the individual top performers, really stood out compared to the rest. Mathieu Jalibert also ended 5th in defenders beaten with 18 defenders beaten in the tournament, and he also didn't play a game with injuries. I do think he probably would have been higher up if he did play that game against Italy, but 18 defenders beaten for a fly half. Mathieu Jalibert showing once again how good he is with ball in hand, how dangerous he is as well with ball in hand on attack. Not one France player in the top 10 for most tackles missed, which is a really big positive. Obviously, you don't want to have any players in the top 10 for tackles missed. It might be a bit of a bad score against them going forward, but not one player in the top 10 for France in the top tackles missed. Antoine Dupont had the most kick meters in the entire tournament with a total of 2,042 kick meters, so 2 kilometers of kicks. That is a lot of kicks. While Dupont had 13 of his kicks retained as well, and Mathieu Jalibert had 10 of his kicks retained. So very good for that. Very good statistic there. 13 of Dupont's kicks retained and 10 of Mathieu Jalibert's kicks retained. And the funny thing is that the way they kick is completely different. Like Antoine Dupont probably had a few box kicks retained. He had a few grubbers, a lot of attacking kicks as well, where Mathieu Jalibert isn't really the type of player to put a lot of up and unders under. He'll have a lot of grubbers, a lot of chip kicks, which just shows how much France vary their kicking game, how much they completely change things up, which is why they're so unpredictable as well. 6 France players ended in the top 10 for dominant tackle contacts, with Oscar Giroud in first with 11 dominant tackle contacts. Emmanuel Miafu and Jean-Baptiste Gros tied for second with 9. That is absolutely phenomenal for tackles. Jean-Baptiste Gros also had a 98% tackle success rate throughout the tournament, which is phenomenal. So out of all of the tackles he made, and he made a lot of tackles, he ended up being 98% successful with most of those tackles. He only missed 2% out of those tackles, which is phenomenal. France had the most tries scored with 30 tries, 9 more than the team that came in second. So a whole 9 more tries than the team that ended second with, 30 tries in a tournament. That is ridiculous. They ended up second in carries, first in offloads by nearly double the amount of Ireland in second. Ireland had 45 offloads while France had 77 offloads. This just shows the quick style of play that France tried to play, and they emphasize on keeping the ball alive, with playing with a lot of unpredictability. These stats just show that France played the way they wanted to play. They dominated the exact way they wanted to. They played to their style, and they didn't really try cater to other people's performances or other people's styles. They played their style and they made it work. Nearly double the amount of offloads of Ireland that came in second, which just shows how unpredictable they try to play, how they try to keep the ball alive, the style of play they play. It just suits them so well, with the likes of Antoine Dupont, Mathieu Jalibert, Thomas Ramos, Louis Bilberi, Charles Olivon, Oscar Giroud, Anthony Gelange, all these players really keeping the ball alive, allowing the other guys outside of them to get more opportunities and play with so much more unpredictability as well. France ended first with try assists, first in defenders beaten, and first in kick meters. France also seems to be the most attacking-minded kicking team that really balances territory kicking with the likes of attacking kicking much better than any other Six Nations team. So France definitely does this much better than any other team in Europe, where other teams are focused more on those tactical box kicks, trying to retain those types of kicks, where France are really changing things up, varying the kick styles that they do with grubbers, chip kicks, kicking the ball into space and letting the speedsters go find it. Also using the bit of the box kicks, the contestable kicks, but France do that so well. A lot of people look at France and they think, oh, they run the ball from everywhere. But if you think of some of the tries they scored, a lot of those tries were from attack-minded kicks, attacking kicks, looking for space, just varying up their style of kicks, which is really dangerous. And I honestly think France's kicking game is so underrated, and especially the way they attack using kicks. It's just, I haven't seen that ever before. It's really good to see, and they honestly do it better than any other team in the world, in my opinion. France also ended first in kicks retained, dominant tackles, carry meters made, line breaks, meters per carry, and points scored. In all of those, they ended first. That is absolutely incredible. I know that stats don't tell the entire story, but these stats just prove how dominant France really were. They were absolutely dominant. They almost led in all of the team statistics. They almost led in all of the individual statistics as well. basically in every single positive statistic you get, you'll see a few France players. More than likely, you'll see the same France players, but it just shows that those key guys for France are so much more dominant than those other key guys from other countries right now in Europe. And France just absolutely obliterated the competition in all the statistics. It is unfortunate that they did have that loss against Scotland, because if they did now get the clean sweep, the Grand Slam, it would have looked a lot better based on how these statistics look for them right now. There is one major problem through all the success for France. Who is France's strongest team? With everyone healthy, if it is a World Cup knockout game, who will be the 23 chosen? This is a huge headache for the selectors and for the coaches going forward. I mean, the most difficult decisions will be in the tied five in the centres, that's for sure. I mean, which is where the most competition currently is in the squad. I mean, I don't know who their best tight five is. I don't know who their best centres are right now. I think 9 and 10 is pretty secure. The wings are pretty secure. The fullback's pretty secure. The loose trio, probably a bit more secure. There is a few more options, but they do know who they like there. But when it comes to the tight five and it comes to the centres, there's so many options. There's so many good world-class players. There's so many young guys coming through. There's so much talent. It's going to be very difficult for the selectors to choose. Now, who do I think are the biggest winners from the Six Nations, and which players do I think have lost out the most through the Six Nations? So, the winners from the Six Nations: Charles Olivon, Mikel Guillard. I mean, he has so much versatility. Emilien Gaetan, he was absolutely awesome. He was composed. He just looked comfortable out there. Tioate Sogbe, obviously we've spoken about Tioate Sogbe. He had a phenomenal tournament coming in for the absolutely legendary Damien Penaud. And Baptiste Seren. Baptiste Seren had a really good tournament from the bench. He added a lot of value. He showed exactly what he can do, and that if Antoine Dupont is injured or unavailable, Baptiste Seren is the perfect guy to have in there. And to be honest, if France send maybe a weaker team later in the year for their first game in the Southern Hemisphere, I think it's against the All Blacks, I'm probably confident that Baptiste Seren, based on how he played, will be the starter there. And I do think going forward, Baptiste Seren will get a lot more game time for France. Now, which players do I think lost out the most, as in were probably the biggest losers from the tournament? I think Dorian Aldegheri, I have to start off there. I think he was one of the players that missed out. He just didn't play that well at all. Doesn't really keep up to the pace with the team. If the scrums aren't going well for him, he doesn't really offer that much around the park. Then Gregory Aldrit. I mean, I honestly thought it was going to be a huge loss on having Gregory Aldrit there, where I do think he can add a lot of value when he is healthy or when he is playing at his best. I don't see him being dropped forever. I do think he will add a lot of value, but still, I think the guys like Oscar Jegu, Paul Bodent wasn't even there, Anthony Gelange was phenomenal, Lenny Nushi was phenomenal, Charles Olivon was phenomenal, Francois Cross was absolutely awesome. So I do think Gregory Aldrit does lose out a lot from how those guys played. Also, Damien Penaud and Gael Fickou. I mean, in the centres, I was thinking, well, who are they going to choose now? Gael Ficou's been there for years, and the wing, Damien Penaud's been awesome. There's no ways they can replace him. But Tioate Sogbe showed he's a very composed player, ready to play at the highest level right now, ready to play against the best, ready to impact the game in a very professional international way that doesn't just work at club level. I think his style, honestly, it goes into the international game so well. It works so well in both of those levels, whether it's club or international. He does so well. And I think, honestly, Gael Fickou, I think his time is done right now, because you think Emilien Gaetan, Fabien Bralbary, Pierre-Louis Barassi, Yarambo Fana, Nicolas Deporté. France have so many good young centres that it almost makes it impossible for a guy like Gael Fickou to come back when those guys are playing so well for the likes of Toulouse and Pau, which are really performing well at the moment as well. So I do think it's a bit of a worrying time for them. Do I think Damien Penaud will make the World Cup? Yes, I do. I don't know if there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, but I do think he's still an important player. I still think when he's at his best, he probably could be a starter in this team with a guy like Tioate Sogbe on the bench, but it is worrying for them. I do think they did lose out. So overall, biggest winners: Charles Olivon, Mikel Guillard, Emilien Gaetan, Tioate Sogbe, and Baptiste Seren. Players that lost out the most: Dorian Aldegheri, Gregory Aldrit, Damien Penaud, and Gael Fickou. But moving on, every player in the match 23 right now is playing for a spot in the World Cup. And you can see it by the way they're playing in this France team. I mean, the internal competition right now is so healthy in this France team that the players just bring out the best of each other every single week. If you think about it, these players in this France team are training against teams that are the same level or even better than the teams they play against on the weekends, which just shows on the weekends. It shows in their performances that they put out. I mean, very few teams have a squad that's strong enough to really get the best out of each other in the same way that France can. I think the only other teams that I really think training-wise and squad-wise can get the best out of each other, can train against teams that are maybe better than they play on the weekends, is probably South Africa, the All Blacks, and Ireland, probably. Yeah, possibly Ireland. I do think that the top 4 teams right now in the world, the top 4 rankings, currently do have the best squads and the best squad depth in the world. I mean, France, Ireland, South Africa, New Zealand, definitely by a long way, probably right now have the best squad depth. And you can see that the way they train in the week, the teams they play against in the week, playing against each other, playing with that internal competition really is helping them with how they play on the weekends. And it's just showing in the rankings as well. I think the way France started the Six Nations, I did not expect their tournament to end the way it did, needing a kick in the 82nd minute of the final game against England to win it. The way they started the tournament, I thought they were going to absolutely steamroll every single team. So I do think they possibly did drop off a bit in form in the second half of the tournament, which is something that they are going to have to look at, especially a year out from a World Cup, where games later into the tournament of the World Cup start to matter a lot more. If you think about it, one slip up in the World Cup or one game not at their best, for example, the Scotland game this year, if that happens in the World Cup, that's going to be a long flight back to France from Australia for them. So I do think that one thing they can focus on going forward is maybe ending a tournament or ending a series as strong as they started, because France are known to really start things off really strong and just maybe have a few games where there's a bit of a hiccup or just drop off. Like that Scotland game, this France team right now cannot afford a game like that in the World Cup next year. They just absolutely cannot afford a game like that, because that could be them going home in the quarterfinals or the semi-finals, where you actually have to improve throughout the tournament. So I think right now it is fair to say that that France is probably firmly the second best team in the world. I think later in the year we'll probably see the actual pecking order. I do think they are close to number 1. I don't think they're number 1 yet, but I do think this France team right now is firmly in the second best spot in the world right now. Yes, later on in the year when they play the All Blacks, when they play my Springboks, it's going to be a lot different to see how they end up, what the pecking order really is. Will that even be a true estimate of where teams are? I don't think so. I think the true estimate will be in the World Cup next year, but I think throughout the year we'll kind of see how the pecking order really plays out. But honestly, France for me right now are by far the best team in Europe. I do think if they played Ireland at their best, it would be a very good game, but I do think France would win it right now. But overall, what a start to the year for France. What a start to the international season. Winning the Six Nations back-to-back. Some young guys coming through. Emilian Gaitan, Fabien Balbery, Mikel Guillard was awesome. Oscar Giroud was awesome. Demba Bamba made a good impact when he came out. Rodrigue Netti was physical off the bench. Lenny Nushi was phenomenal. Baptiste Seren looks back at his best. Antoine Dupont and Mathieu Jalibert really sorted out their combination. They looked awesome together. Thomas Ramos is playing some incredible rugby, and Louis Belbarry is currently the best wing in the world, and he's playing like it. He's playing like the best player in the world right now. So a lot of positives for this France team right now. I do think right now they are by far the best team in Europe, but can they keep up that consistency? I think the questions they have to ask themselves a year out from a World Cup, can they keep that consistency towards the end of a tournament? Can they keep it up for the entire game? Can they win those close games where they're maybe not at their best on the day? I do think they can, but it's still a long way to go to the World Cup. But I mean, you saw it there. So did France dominate the Six Nations? They absolutely dominated it. If you look at all the stats, they completely dominated. They were in the top 3 for most of the stats, especially the positive stats. They had no players in the top 10 for missed tackles. In fact, I think they missed the least amount of tackles of any team in the tournament. So if you're talking set piece, France was dominant. If you're talking lineouts as well, which is set piece, they were still dominant there. The attacking play was awesome. The way they defended, they were physical. They led this whole tournament with dominant collisions as well. So not just on attack with scoring points, on defense as well, they were really good. Yes, they slipped up a bit in the last 2 games, but when it comes to the statistics of the tournament, they really dominated. So I think this France team right now is in a different place than they were last year. They have a lot more depth, and I'm really excited to see how they go throughout the rest of the year. I honestly think they probably will send a weaker team to New Zealand. I hope not. I'd love to see a full strength France team play in New Zealand. It would be absolutely epic. But I honestly do think if they were to send a team of guys that didn't play in the top 14 finals, they would still have a very strong team right now. I mean, they would have some really good options, and I think they would be able to give New Zealand probably a run for their money in that game. So that's going to be very interesting. A lot of rugby still to play throughout the entire year, but France right now are the team to beat in Europe, the team to beat from Europe, and it's going to be awesome to see how they go throughout the year. A big year for them still with their club rugby. I know they pride themselves a lot on the top 14. They think it is the best tournament in the world. To be honest, it probably is the best club tournament in the world, and it's a phenomenal tournament. A lot of rugby still to be played with those guys. A lot of players still to play their way back into the team. Can Damien Pinot get back into the squad? Can Gregory Aldrich get back into the squad? Can Gael Ficou prove he's still the guy that they need? But a lot of storylines there. We'll be covering everything, and also player ratings coming out next week. So if you do enjoy the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.